Welcome again to RC Video Magazine. In this issue, volume number 8, we'll be going to the 1986 quarter-scale fly-in at Las Vegas. Then we have a report from the Sport Flyers Corner with Doug Pratt. Frank Fanelli shows us how to make precision sanding tools. Aeronautical Oddities, a film from NASA. And we have a review of the Sig Senior Cadet. And finally, a report on slope soaring.
Hi, this is Ken Wells. You're looking at a dry lake bed just out of Las Vegas, Nevada, where over 150 aircraft are assembled for the 1986 QSAA quarter-scale fly-in. This unique perspective on the event is being televised through the lens of Alan Coccone's latest video plane. This year, we're going to see some really spectacular achievements in quarter-scale building, including George Vogelsang's Pulsejet ME-163 and Dick Enos's beautiful new SE-5A. Plus, we'll see plenty of great flying. So let's get the video plane down and check out the action from our earthbound cameras. Talking with Alan Coccone. We talked to Alan 2 years ago, and we wanted to find out what you've been doing over the last 2 years.
Our main effort has been developing a more efficient airplane for longer endurance and higher performance. So this one has an endurance of about 4 hours and a top speed of 110 miles an hour.
Boy, I noticed it really goes fast.
And in every effort to make a streamlined, clean airplane, hence the pusher and the V-tail. Other changes have been slight modifications in the electronics to add more channels of telemetry, monitoring engine temperatures and some other things that weren't being monitored last time.
Maybe you could list those, what you've done.
There's engine temperature and ambient temperature, and I think I have a couple of extra gauges in the internal electronics, monitoring the signal level at the receiver so I can tell when I'm about to run out of range. And there's another battery I'm sending back a signal on, which I wasn't before. I have also gone from prototype construction to PC boards, so now it's easy to reproduce, and that took quite a bit of work.
Have you done any of these on a professional level, any contracts?
Yes, I've sold one system with the old type of airplane to NASA. They use it for research purposes. And I've also used the electronics out of this sort of airplane for the Pterodactyl project, for the autopods and servo controls there.
What kind of engine are you now using?
Yeah, I'm using a Horner 4.2 twin. And although it doesn't offer the fuel economy that the Sato I first tried offered, it seems to be a bit more reliable and easier to use. It's uglier and sticks out of the cowl because the cowl was designed for Sato. But it starts beautifully and runs very nicely.
Tell us a little bit about the flying characteristics. We notice you're taking off and landing now from inside the van.
Yeah, this airplane is quite forgiving. When the flaps are down, there's a lot of built-in wall shot on the wing, so it won't tip stall or anything nasty. On takeoff, it's a bit different, because with this landing gear arrangement, it can't rotate. So you drop the flaps, and when it reaches flying speed, it automatically leaps off the ground.
Thanks, Alan. Now let's leap over to the runway, where a variety of planes are getting airborne.
Dick Enos?
Dick Enos and his SE-5. Dick, tell me a little bit about this airplane.
Yes, it is scratch built. It's almost 100% scratch built, and it's built from the British Royal Air Force drawings. It's not a kit. The plans were drawn up from scale drawings, and construction follows very much the real airplane. Some modeling efforts have been made for a radio control type aircraft, but basic construction is full scale.
Tell me about some of the detail you've put into this.
Oh boy. Well, let's see, detail. Well, you might start out with the actual lacing on the side of the fuselage is actually unlaces so that you can get to the sides and get to the components. The radiator shutters on the actually operate. All the controls are fully operational as of the real airplane, cable and pulley affair. On the dashboard has a working compass and all the dials operate. The basic construction is not the epoxies as most models are built, but is of spruce and is put together with metal brackets and bolts.
Has it flown yet?
No, I finished it last Tuesday night. We packed the thing up and left 4 o'clock Wednesday morning to come down here. So, and the plane does balance beautifully. It balances, and it weighed out 55 pounds, and it was just the week before that we got our newsletter that the weight limit was 55, and it about knocked us for a loop, you know. I'm anxious to see it fly. Everybody says, oh, you can't fly it, but to me, what's a model if it doesn't fly?
Yeah, well, I'm glad. That's fantastic.
That's the way it should be.
Thank you very much, Dick.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
There are plenty of laser aircraft here today, but Bill Young's scratch-built Electric is one of a kind. Its Astro Cobalt 60, powered by 28 subsea cells, can push this 6-foot wing, 10-pound plane through the air just fine. And it's got an electric smoke system Bill designed himself. Hello, Heather.
Hello.
How are you today?
Fine.
How old are you?
13.
Tell me a little bit. This is a flybaby?
Yeah.
The flybaby bite. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, it's got a wingspan of 86 inches, and this way it's a lot taller than I am.
Did you build it yourself?
Yep.
Tell me about building it.
Well, it took a long time, and it was kind of hard. But after it got together, it's really nice.
Boy, that's a big airplane for a little girl like you. Is it any trouble to fly it?
Well, yeah, pretty hard. Sometimes you have to take it to the right a lot, and the left, it's pretty easy to work, and the rest of the controls work pretty easy.
Oh, great. Okay. Tell me a little bit, who got you started flying? How you got started?
Well, my dad, he was taking flying lessons from this one guy at the flying field across the mountains, and I got interested, so I decided that I would take flying lessons, and that's how I learned.
Great. You going to keep building and flying airplanes?
Yep.
Great. Okay. What engine do you have in this?
I don't know.
Oh,
Dad
that's okay. Of course, I come up with one hard question, right? You need an answer. Heather took best in junior achievement here today with a little help from her dad, Richard Wright of Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's take a look at some more planes that have some quality finish work. That's Chip Hyde putting a Balsa USA J3 Cub through its paces. Chip has brought 3 planes here today, but there's just something about watching our classic Cub that reminds many pilots and model builders of earlier encounters with this all-time favorite aircraft.
Would you take over and get them ready to go?
Right now. He's pushing the nose down, up in the air. He's relighting. See the flame? Look at that. This is the rocket airplane. And restart. Just restart. Power's off. He's gliding.
Things that happen.
He's got a speed now of about 90 miles an hour. 70. Speed's coming up here. Back up to about 90 plus. Into a roll, dead stick roll. He's a glider right now, just as the big rocket for. Matter of fact, this probably flies longer than what the big ones did.
Do a little calculating. I don't imagine that glide angle is very good.
Give yourself a nice alignment for the runway, and at the speed that he's going right now, it's about reading between about 60 miles an hour. Okay, he has his airspeed up. He's bleeding it off. He's lining himself up with the runway. He's keeping those wings perfectly level, flaring a little back on the stick. Too much. He still has plenty of speed. He's letting it grease right in. And getting a nice touchdown. This is the real one. You're going to slow it up a little bit. And we have a touchdown there at about 30 miles. Oh, those curtain lines out there.
Impressive.
So our tachometer quits at about 320 kilometers, which is 200 miles. We exceeded that with ease. You don't see it, but it was much more than 200 miles.
You are?
Whee! Very good.
Come on, John. Vas-y, Françoise, un petit peu avec George ici.
George, if you could introduce your mechanic or...
No, Heinz Lara is not the mechanic. He is the father, as I said before, of the Pulsejet movement in Germany, and he developed all these Pulsejets we do over here, we do have over there. And this is the latest design. It's a real huge 50-pound thrust motor. And, well, unfortunately, he doesn't speak too much English, so I've got to do the translation.
Okay.
Due to the fact that we use a geared pump, we have to bring the fuel to the motor absolutely bubble-free, and if you don't do that, in the old days the motor quit it instantly. With this new pump now we have just a little brr, 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 brr. Maybe you heard that on the flight. And we really worked hard to get all the bubbles out, but we just didn't succeed. The Messerschmitt 163 was a development in late World War II, and it was designed as a liquid rocket fighter. and it was what we called an object protector, so it was supposed to climb out within 1 minute up to 30,000 feet. And it had fuel aboard for about 2 minutes, and then they had a chance to make 1 or 2 diving attacks, and then they had to get that thing back down again. This is a 3mm titanium spar joiner. This is where the Pulsejet and the cooling arrangement passes through, and this is the carbon fiber spar, and it just slides in like this. And under 20 Gs we have in this area and there, or if you go upside down, there and there, we have a load of 1.7 tons on this carbon fiber spar. You see this here? This is a metal ball joiner, and we go with the loads through the center line of everything here. So this is pretty strong and stiff, and it has to be, as flutter on this plane is just deadly.
I was going to ask, have you had any flutter problems?
No.
How about cooling?
It's a setup we worked on for quite a while. We have around the Pulsejet, with a gap of about ½ an inch, a titanium tube out of thin-walled titanium material. So the air passes through between the Pulsejet and this tube. So this takes out most of the heat, but the rest is coped with by mineral wool, which is made or put around that tube. And then we do have a ventilated fuselage. So you see the air exiting here. This takes the heat out of the fuselage, and then again the radio compartment and the pump and the spark system up here, the ignition system, is cooled again by holes which we do have in the wing here that runs a tube to the radio compartment, so it's vented again. We have 3 different systems actually in there.
Fantastic. What an incredibly complex and challenging project. It's incredible.
It's fun.
Discover the high-flying freedom of the Electra. Nothing else in electric-powered RC even comes close to the Electra's simplicity, affordability, and performance. The ultimate RC change of pace. The latest advances in RC car technology, combined with years of Carl Goldberg's model design experience, has brought you the Electra. The aerodynamics is based upon the famous Gentle Lady glider, resulting in a very stable, easy-to-fly electric-powered plane. The Electra is very easy to build, too. You'll work from clear, concise plans and instructions that help you breeze through each stage of construction without a hitch. Even if you're a beginner, you'll be able to handle the job successfully. Her special Mabuchi motor, included in the deluxe version, gives you almost 5 minutes of solid climb or light aerobatics on a standard 6-cell pack, and her superb aerodynamics do the rest. You can figure on getting 12 minutes of flight even in dead air. Plus, we'll show you how to install a 3rd-channel throttle for an added dimension of control. And with 2 battery packs, you can fly almost indefinitely. for most of us, the dream of carefree electric RC flight was still just a dream. Well, the Electra changes that. If you're ready for the most refreshing experience in RC, there's an Electra kit waiting for you at your dealers now. Let's hear it for freedom.
I wanted to show you a couple of new products that I've seen just lately in the way of radio-controlled airplanes that I found very interesting, and I think you will too. These are both oriented toward beginners, and since I really consider myself either a beginner or a hacker in a lot of ways, I found them very attractive. This, if it's not the world's ugliest airplane, it is definitely in the top 5. This is called a Duraplane. And this is a new product that will be released at the Toledo show this year from a small company in Michigan. The idea behind this airplane is this is the plane that you do your crashing with while you're building a wood airplane. This is for first-timers. It is ugly. There's absolutely nothing attractive about it except for the fact that it is designed to be crash-worthy. It has a solid foam wing. You don't have to paint it. You can leave it ugly. The fuselage is a plastic box, very durable, PVC plastic. The only way you're going to break this is if it's freezing outside. Then it might shatter, but the box itself is very inexpensive to replace. Inside it, you have your receiver battery, 3 servos. The servos fit into this aluminum channel that forms the tail. They just jam right in there. No servo tape, no mounting rails, no nothing. Just pop the servos in. Couple of nylon push rods go back to the tail surfaces. The tail surfaces bolt in place, 2 bolts from underneath and 2 bolts from the side for the vertical fin. They're 1/4-inch balsa wood. They're not going to break. Even if they do break, you slap them together with a little superjet. Hinging them is very simple, so is hooking up the push rods. If you want to put the effort into it, which I didn't want to bother with, you can put the fuel tank inside the fuselage. I prefer just to rubber band it to the outside, and I'll show you in the flying version of this plane that I've got handy. You drill a hole through the firewall for the throttle push rod, and you're in business. The people who produced this recommend the K&B 20 Sportster engine for it, and so do I. I have fallen in love with this engine. It's absolutely fantastic. Very simple, very inexpensive engine. You should be able to buy this for on the very close order of $35 in any hobby shop you go into. Furthermore, it is an extremely quiet engine. It has a beautiful muffler on it that really is a muffler instead of just an expansion chamber. I took the thing out, ran one break-in run on it for about 10 minutes, slobbering rich. Then I leaned it in on the next fuel tank, and I thought I'd let it sit on the ground for another break-in run at about half lean. But it was running so happily, I just said, what the heck, and unhooked the tail and flew the airplane. And it's run beautifully ever since. It also has a nice radial mount on it, so you don't need a motor mount. Now, if you absolutely have to, you can slap a standard 40 with a motor mount on the Duraplane. In fact, the new K&B 45, which also has one of these little spider-type radial engine mounts, would be real nice for that. But I find that it flies just beautifully with the K&B 20 Sportster, and for the price, how can you go wrong? Now remember what this plane is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a first-timer's airplane that they can go out and do their crashing with. This plane is going to extend the life of the Goldberg Eagle or Sig Cadet or whatever wooden plane the person builds as their first, quote, real airplane. If it crashes, what can break? You'll break the prop, sure. Props are $1.95. You might break the needle valve off, $2. You might, in a really bad crash, break the motor mount, $3.95. Yeah, big deal. You might break the foam wing. A little epoxy, slap it right back together. You can do that right on the field. You might clean the landing gear off. Nylon bolts, they separate. The extra bolts are available at your hobby shop. They screw into nuts on the inside that are already in place. You slap them back on. You're not going to break the tail. You're not going to bend that aluminum channel. The people who developed the Duraplane have really wrung them out. And I've crashed mine a few times, too. In fact, you know, it's really strange. Deliberately trying to crash an airplane is one of the hardest things I have ever done with model airplanes. But I actually accomplished it 3 times on purpose and 1 time not on purpose. And by George, I had it back together that same time, the same day, and just flew it again. I couldn't put it into any kind of a crash situation that I didn't have some sort of an answer for, just by having a few spare parts handy. Watch out for this at your local hobby shop. Now, while we're on the subject of beginner airplanes, I want to show you one that I've been working with recently that I have developed a lot of affection for. This might look very strangely like this. This is a Peck Polymers Prairie Bird, one of my all-time favorite indoor rubber planes, very easy to put together, and an awful lot of fun on a cold wintry day in a high school gymnasium. The little Prairie Bird worked out so well, the people at Peck Polymers scaled it up 3 times for radio control. Now this is an easy-to-fly airplane. The ads say your grandmother could fly it. I don't have any grandmothers left, but I guarantee you that just about anybody could fly this airplane. It's beautiful, slow, easy flying. The turns are artistic. You can rack it right around in tight turns, and it doesn't mind a bit. I also found the kit very easy to put together. Now, I'm not exactly a green builder, but I found that the wood in the kit was by far the best wood I have ever seen in a kit box. Of course, that figures, since Peck Polymers makes a lot of indoor kits and free-flight kits, they hand-select all their wood. Well, they haven't been stinting on this particular operation. The sides of the Prairie Bird are sheet, so it's very simple to put together. The tail is a built-up structure, nice and lightweight. The wing is very simple, conventional structure. It's conventional throughout. For a second or third airplane, you would have no difficulty at all putting together this Prairie Bird. As a matter of fact, a mature builder, somebody who's willing to take the time and read the instructions and read the plans, would have no difficulty at all putting it together for a first airplane. Now, Bob Peck really likes the Prairie Bird flying with 05 electric, and I figured I would too, but I've already got a whole bunch of electric airplanes, and I had something I really wanted to put in the Prairie Bird. This engine is an 05 size diesel made by a company called PAW, Progress Aero Works, in England. Now, I really like diesels. I discovered them a couple of years ago, late, like everything else I do, and I have really begun to fall in love with them. I've got a couple of the different PAWs, and I've found that these are really nice engines, surprisingly easy to work with. Diesels use a different fuel, obviously. The fuel I use, I get from Red Max. It's the approximate description of it is 1/3 ether, 1/3 kerosene, and 1/3 castor oil. On a smaller engine like the 049 size or the 06 that they make, you need to ask them to up the ether content a little bit. I buy this fuel in gallon lots, but I ask them to put it up for me in quart cans, because that way I don't have to open except what I'm using, and because the ether evaporates very quickly. And it costs the same as their 10% nitro standard glow fuel, so I don't see how you can beat that. In any case, one of the nice things about diesels is you don't need any kind of a battery to get them started. All you have to do is fuel them up and start flipping. Now the head, the compression of the engine is adjusted by this screw on top of it, which screws a contrapiston up and down. They come from the factory already run. Every engine that PAW makes has been run ahead of time. So you don't have to tinker with the compression setting very much. Just make sure it's got fuel in it, start flipping until you get the feel of it. And once you have it, You might have to back the compression setting off about a quarter turn as the engine warms up. At that point, you never worry about it again. I've had a lot of success with this little 049 and with the other PAW engines that I've had. PAW makes engines up to a 35. This is a PAW 29. Very similar to the 049 in its general layout, except it has a very nice integral muffler. This is a very quiet engine, especially if you put a pipe on this muffler outlet to duct the fuel off to the side. One of the other really neat things about diesels, especially for an old four-stroke engine freak like me, is that they will tolerate very, very large props. This is a 12.6 on a 29-sized engine, and this is the prop the engine really likes. I could put a 13.4 on it very easily. Since it has adjustable compression, what you're effectively doing is adjusting the ignition timing, so it'll tolerate a very wide range of propellers. Take a look at diesel engines. I think you'd enjoy them. They are definitely something neat, and I'm a lot like some society women who hate to show up at a party where somebody's wearing the same dress they are. I hate to show up at the flying field with everything that everybody else has got. If you like things that are a little out of the usual, out of the ordinary, not to say weird, then take a look at some diesel engines. I think you might like them. PAW diesels are imported by a fellow named Eric Clutton in Tennessee, and also by a company called Carlson Model Imports. They advertise in all the major magazines.
Try a gallon of Sig Champion fuel the next time you go to the field. Sig Champion model engine fuel has been a favorite with experienced flyers for almost 20 years. That's because quality is our #1 priority. All Sig fuels are carefully blended with a mixture of Pratts Technoplate racing oil and pure AA castor oil for maximum engine protection.
I'm Gary Gilbreth. I've been mixing fuel at Sig's here for over 8 years now. Glenn Sig discovered over 20 years ago that using only the finest quality ingredients can guarantee a top-performing fuel.
For those of you who already have the fine Sig products, take the video tour of Sig and see what makes Sig unique in the model industry.
Hi, my name's Frank Fanelli. I'm the associate editor of Flying Models magazine. I'm just finishing up some sanding chores on this Sig quarter scale Cub. I've been flying RC for about 12 years now, and I've always found that sanding could be one of the most onerous and burdensome chores that you could have when you're building. Way back in the beginning, the only sanding tool I had was this little X-Acto block, and sometimes it used to make more work for me than it saved. And I found that I really needed some precise precision tools. This block here was not very precise, and it used to end up actually making more work for me because it used to cut gouges into the leading and trailing edges of stock that I would be sanding because of the way the sandpaper curled on the edges of the sanding block. Well, we've come a long way since then. We've got a lot more things to help us with our sanding chores, especially things like this Permagrit sanding tool. But still, it's not enough. Sometimes there are times when we need a precise tool for a precise application, and because of that, Sat down one day and I started doing some research, and I came up with a couple of different techniques that provide us with precise, very versatile sanding tools for whatever our needs may be. I've got those three techniques, and I thought you might like to see some of them. The first one I call my throwaway technique, and it involves making up spur-of-the-moment sanding tools for a very precise, specific application. Say you need to sand a 1/4-inch slot. All you got to do is go to your scrap box and find a piece of 1/4-inch stock, like this particular one has a 1/4-inch edge over here, a little bit of sandpaper, and I also use the slow zap, the slow-setting cyanoacrylate as an adhesive with a little bit of zip kicker to help speed things up when I need to, and a little bit of sandpaper that we're going to use, and some wax paper to lay down so that we don't mar the work surface. The way we do it, very simple. We first get the cyanoacrylate, and we lay a fine bead right down along the edge of the 1/4-inch surface that we're going to use. Now, don't use too much, because if you do, you're going to end up putting a lot of excess over the edges, and it's going to create a mess when you go to cut this wood out. Now, next thing you do is you take the sandpaper and lay it down. Because it's slow setting, you have some time to align it very, very carefully with the edge. You want that edge flush with the surface of the sanding tool itself. Now that we have it in position and it's aligned, we hit it with a little bit of accelerator, which speeds things up immensely. Turn it around, and we get a single-edged razor blade. Now, you want it to be extremely sharp because you want it to score precisely. If you use something that's dull, it's going to rip the paper and leave a lot of edges that you don't want. And here what we're doing is we're cutting right along the side there very carefully, very evenly, and laying it in. And that cuts very nicely, by the way, especially when it's sharp. And there you have a very precise sanding tool. The edges of the sanding surface are exactly flush with the sides of the sanding tool. When you're finished, because it's a piece of scrap and it's just a little piece of sandpaper, you just throw it away in the garbage. But it's extra precise, and it'll get in the tight spots that you need it to get into. That's the throwaway technique. The next one I call my reusable technique. Let me show you how we do that. The reason I call it that is because it's a sanding block that you can reload. This sanding block is made from a piece of particle board that's about 8 or 10 inches long, and it's only about 2.5, 3 inches wide. I cut a bunch of them from a scrap of particle board that I had laying around in my cellar. Now, what you do with it here is you want to make it so that you can reload the sandpaper. If you use the cyanoacrylate, you can't take it off. It's a permanent piece, and when the sandpaper wears out, the surface of it, the grit is gone, you have to throw the entire sanding block away, which could be rather expensive. What I found was a special 3M tape. It's called transfer tape, and it's not something that you come by very easily, but I find that it's very valuable tape. You have to get it from some 3M distributor. It's a double-sided tape, and it has a very high tack on it, but you can also use it to pull back off. And here's how we're going to set it up. First of all, we take our sanding block, and we take the tape, and we're going to align the tape right along the edge of the sanding block itself. Get it down nice and evenly. Cut the piece off, and you're ready. Now, next thing you want to do is you want to get that tape down nice and firmly so that that tape is really stuck to the surface of the particle board itself. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to lay another strip down the other edge. And again, you want it to align as well as possible with that edge of the block. Cut off the back end. Push it down nice and firm so that it's going to stay right on that particle board. And last, to make sure that we have a surface where that sandpaper is not going to shift, lay down a strip in the middle. Now we cut it off. There we go. Got to get the backing off, and this is probably the hardest part of this whole technique, is to make sure that you get the backing off without lifting the tape that's behind it. So we get that corner there, and we have to fiddle with it a little bit. Looks like it's coming up pretty nicely. Yeah, there it goes. And carefully peel it away. Comes right off. Now we go on to the next strip. There you go. Carefully peel that away. Make sure it's down nice and firmly. And, of course, the last strip. What's nice about this tape is the fact that if any of it gets stuck to the surface when you go to reuse it, comes up very easily, and I'll show you how later on. Now we have the tape down on the surface of the particle board. We're going to lay it over the sandpaper, and again, we carefully align the edges. In all of these techniques, you want that edge to be extremely carefully aligned so that there's no overlap, and you get the bearing surface of the block on the edge of the paper itself. Now I'm going to use my little cutting board here so I don't cut into the surface of the table. And we use that sharp single-edged razor blade again. We just go right down along the edge of the sanding block, a couple passes, and that should liberate that paper very nicely. There we go. It's out of the way. And there you have it, a nice, durable, sturdy sanding block that can be used to sand long, straight runs that you need to. Now, just to prove to you that this is reusable, I can take this paper and I can pull it right up. Can't see it on camera, but most of the tape here has stayed down on the surface of the particle board. Now, if I need to, if that is reused, I just rub my fingers back like this, and it balls up just like rubber cement would do. It almost has the same consistency as rubber cement. And all you have to do is rub your finger like that, and it rubs right up into a ball. And you're ready to start the process all over again with a fresh piece of paper. Well, that wraps up the second technique. I still have one more to show you, and I'm going to be back a little bit later on to finish up with the last technique. See you then.
Zap works like magic. It's the first choice of amateur and professional hobbyists with products for every hobby material. Products like Zap-A-Gap, Slow Zap, Zap Lock, and many more. The Zap Total system outperforms all others. We know what you need because we're modelers ourselves. With Zap, you'll be amazed at what you can do.
Pennsylvania. So what is this? It's like nothing anyone should see on the public highway, but hey, wait a minute, it's turning into the field. Maybe it's a newfangled potato planter or something. No, sir, it's an aerial plane with turntable wings. George Spratt, the inventor, figured that's how she could taxi along the highways and maybe the skyways. The experts give 10 to 1 she can't fly. Georgie's set on taking a chance, and there he goes! And that's the time the experts got fooled. Good boy, George.
This ship here with a three-wheel landing gear, any kind of a landing is perfectly all right. Frontwards or sideways, one wheel, or any other way that you wish. The GPS center steers with a wheel instead of the conventional rudder bar, both in the air and on the ground. Similar to this. The flippers are handled by the fore and aft motion of the stick, and the ailerons by the side motion. The throttle is directed behind the wheel like a Model T Ford. All right, Andy, let's go.
why shouldn't it raise an airplane? Perhaps that's what Mr. Jonathan Caldwell thought when he designed and built this contraption, which is being shown to the public for the first time. The mill wheels going round are supposed to represent the flapping wings of a goose. The wheels turn all right, but it just won't leave the ground, not even when they drag it. It moves, though, and that's something. But any auto will go pretty well downhill. A good idea just the same, Professor, and better luck next time.
Don't laugh. This thing that looks as if half of it was missing really works. It's a new tubular plane invented by an Italian engineer who believes this design will someday break all records for speed and stability. You've often seen a barrel roll, but here's one that flies.
Here's the airplane of the future, according to its inventor, Dr. Snyder. He calls it the flying wing, and experts think it's going to revolutionize aviation. It's supposed to be foolproof and has lots of speed and pep, as the doc's going to show you right now. Here she goes. Looks as if the inventor copied his idea from a butterfly. Being all wing turns it into a glider in case the motor gets heebie-jeebies and makes tail spins impossible, Dr. Snyder claims. It can top 100 miles an hour and is supposed to be as safe as old Dobbin for the family. If what the doc says comes true, we'll all be hopping around in these pancakes very soon.
No, it's not an airplane, and it isn't a balloon. It's a spindle airship, a new invention that has excited aeronautical engineers. Perhaps Mr. Popper, the inventor, will explain the idea for us.
In place of wings, we use spindles on this ship. The large ones are the main lifters, and the small ones act as stabilizers. This is done by spiraling, so that the landing good speed would be about 5 to 10 miles per hour.
Now, as they revolve, the spindles, with their little indentations, are creating a lifting vacuum above. Engineers predict the spindles will be more efficient than the wings of an airplane. There's only this about the spindle airship. She hasn't flown yet, but who can say she won't?
The flying umbrella. Here's the latest in aviation, which the inventors hope will be the family flivver of the earth. And it really works. The single circular wing allows a quick takeoff, and it can go 135 miles an hour. Don't worry about engine trouble. That pancake top allows it to drop slower than a parachute, and it can land at your front door. Maybe it's the future aerial taxi.
A
tailless answer to the call issued by the Aeronautics Director of the Department of Commerce for a flivver of the air.
It is my hope that someday that this little ship will become the great-great-granddaddy of America's air flivver.
Just a pair of wings and a place to sit, and what a place. The tiny craft weighs 1,100 pounds and has a wing spread of only 30 feet. A device on the wingtips controls direction. Meet the professor, folks. For 20 years, he's been watching the Goldberg and has finally discovered what makes it fly. All it takes is a tank full of oxygen, a left-handed monkey wrench, and a couple of nuts. Here we go. History in the making. It's the happiest day of the professor's life. Let's hope he's put salt on his tail. Going, that's all.
Something new to make flying safer. Stabilizers like these keep the plane level while in flight. The pilot's taking up the ship to show you how the device works. There he is, getting out of the cabin, leaving the plane completely under automatic control. See how smoothly it flies, without a human hand to guide it. Now the pilot's on the fuselage, and no one is in the cockpit. The test is a success and should encourage one-armed drivers who want to hug their girls.
More convincing proof of the amazing and rapid progress of aviation you wouldn't want, I'm sure, than this demonstration at Baltimore today. J. Carl Bauer and Louis Huber went to work in their spare time to construct this poor man's dream, a plane propelled by bicycle pedals. It's a momentous occasion. All aviation stops to watch. Did someone say they laughed at the Wright brothers? Well, this pair will try again, too. Maybe make a bicycle out of airplane parts.
Paris offers a real novelty in aircraft. It's called the Electra plane, and it's based on the principles of a flying mosquito with the sting left out. Its tail sticks up in the middle and is supposed to prevent slips and nosedives. Now we'll see what we will see. It works. The brainchild of inventor Vicomte de Rouge speeds 60 miles an hour. For 5 years, the Vicomte has been laughed at, but now it is he who has the laugh.
Folks, here I am with a new device called the ornithopter. This device, I expect to attain flight in the air. Through a system of leverage advantage, plus a man's physical power, I believe it's possible to fly as a bird. And here I am, you can look this device over. It appears heavy, it's light.
Well, that sounds okay if it works. But if Bertie doesn't fly when he makes that jump, he's going to get a real cold bath. Here he goes. Splash-o. Well, he got the bath all right. But is little Willard discouraged? Not a bit. Just wait a moment and you'll see. Now his feathers are all dry again. He's had a good dinner of canary seed, so maybe this time he'll really do it. He's going to soar gracefully off the rock, so he says. Keep your eye on the birdie. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
Here you see another type helicopter or direct lift air machine. Our principle, as you will see, is a flat plate or disc type propeller moving the air fast enough to produce a lift. Our engine is connected to our transmission by a jack shaft driven by a chain. Our transmission rotates and reciprocates our propeller. As the propeller goes up, we get our lifting power on the down reciprocation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll show you how this works.
Cohen, the pump chap there, is a butcher by trade, but in his spare moments he's a student of aerodynamics. And right now he's demonstrating in a small way the principle of a new rocket device he's working on. Something must have gone haywire. But here's the real thing, Jack's bicycle rocket glider. And he's all set for a tryout here at the Metropolitan Airport. If it'll just work as he hopes, he'll be famous tomorrow. Then goodbye loin chops and rump steaks. The dog collar he's putting on is an ingenious arrangement which will enable him to aid the flight of his craft by a gentle flapping of the wings. So. With a little help from everything but gravity, Cohen gets his remarkable flying machine underway at terrific speed. That is, it'll get up speed if the assistant rocket engineer will only hurry up and put a match to the power plant. Oh, there goes another dream up in smoke. The idea wasn't so hot, but Cohen's burning up. What he should have next time is a pair of asbestos pants.
RC Video Magazine asked Terry Edwards, an aviation and maintenance inspector for a fleet of corporate aircraft, to build and report on Sig Cadet Senior. Let's hear Terry's report.
Hello, my name's Terry Edwards. Today we're going to look at this Sig Senior Cadet kit. It's a big airplane, it should fly slow, and I think it's something that I can handle. Going through the kit, as usual, we have a good set of plans. There are two sections. One basically has the fuselage layout on it. The second is the wing and horizontal stabilizer layout. The book. This book is outstanding. It gives you everything you need to know to build this airplane. There are a couple of areas that seem a little shady, and we'll go over those later, but the instructions are just excellent in this. The hardware packages are complete. You've got an engine mount package with the hinges, and here's all the hardware, the nuts and the bolts and the control horns for installing the engine mount, landing gear. It's a typical SIG kit. Everything is in good shape. The wood is probably the highlight of the kit. Every piece that comes out of here is straight. Even that. The trailing edges, the leading edges, the pieces that are used for the longerons in the fuselage I don't know how they get their wood to be so straight, but they really do a good job on this. Now, one of the first things you need to do when you're getting into a kit like this is sort of sort and pick your wood. The fuselage longerons are all 1/4 inch square material. So what you need to do is pick the ones that are similar. You want to start out with some that are about the same weight and density. I like to get some pretty hard ones for the bottom longerons. Here's a couple right here that are straight, and you need 4 of these because they have to be spliced together to make the length of this big fuselage. I've picked the pieces I want to use for those bottom fuselage longerons, and I have a little method that I use for splicing long pieces. I thought I'd show you on a demonstration piece how that can be fairly simple to do. A lot of people are afraid of splices, but this isn't too difficult a job. I've got a couple of pieces of balsa wood here that we can practice on. Now, a splice should be at a fairly shallow angle. For real aircraft splices, it's about a 12-to-1 angle. By stacking these 2 pieces up, we'll say these are our 2 longerons. You've got the one piece out that direction and the other long piece out this way. You can just stack those up, take your razor saw and get a good angle and start cutting down through it. You don't need to clamp it, jig it, or anything. By holding it with your fingers, you can get the same angle of slice. It came apart, but you've already got this marked here. So you can continue to go right on through and cut that. Now you have a good angle. It's easy to glue those 2 pieces together, get a splice, a joint that's just as strong as the wood itself. In fact, if it breaks, it'll break somewhere other than that joint. So let's move on to a framed up fuselage I have here. There's one point, I got to this stage without any trouble, but there's one area that was a little vague, and that was about installing the fuel tank. They show in the instructions that you put in these formers and these longeron strips before you install the fuel tank. I suggest that you put the formers on, you get your fuel tank installed, make sure everything's lined up right, and then proceed with these fairing strips and planking the top of the fuselage. Other than that, the instructions were very clear, and I had no problem to this point at all. I'm going to go ahead and finish this now and get it ready to cover, get it ready to fly. One thing I'm going to do is try a new product. Sig has come out with a new plastic covering that's called Super Coat. I've never used it, but I think we'll try it. It's super fast, super light, super tough, super clean, super bright. I'm willing to try anything once. We'll put that on this airplane and see how it works. Well, you can see we got it completed. I think the airplane's about ready to go. I have a couple of little items I wanted to discuss. One thing that I did this time I've never done when I build a model airplane is try to keep track how much time I spent. And if anybody cares, this took me a total of 34 hours to build the airplane. I thought it went together pretty fast. I have one discrepancy in the instruction manual I wanted to point out. On step number 55, the manual says to fill in right ahead of the stabilizer and around the rudder with 1/8 inch sheet. The plans show 3/32 sheet in that area, and they didn't include any 1/8 inch sheet in the kit. So I got some extra 1/8 inch and put it in the way the manual showed. 3/32 looked a little light. We have a new Fox 40 BBRC with a Series 6 carburetor. This is really a small engine for a 40. You can hardly even see it in the nose of this Cadet. I'm anxious to get this out and get it flying and see how this engine handles. It really is good. I'm a real Fox fan, and I'm happy to have this and give it a try. Well, I put this Sig Super Coat covering on the Cadet, and I am really impressed with the way this stuff works. I had no problems getting it on, getting it tacked down. One thing they did say to use fairly low heat, so I found that running about 220 to 240 degrees on the iron worked about best. So I laid it on there and tacked it down and took the heat gun and tightened it up. It took very little heat from the heat gun. You don't dare get too close to the wing. And it tightened up real well. Everything shrunk down, so it gave a real nice finish. And I am really pleased with this stuff. It seems to be real lightweight, and it's one of the easiest film coverings that I've ever worked with. I think I'm going to continue to use it. Well, I took this Fox 40 out of the box and mounted it on the bench, and I was really impressed with the way it started. I had no problem getting it tuned in, running it on the bench, and I ran about 3 tanks of fuel through it, and it runs smooth. It's idle. I haven't had an engine that runs that smooth in a long time. And in the airplane, everything just worked out fine.
McDaniel RC Incorporated, maker of Nystarter and other fine model accessories, introduces the definitive lighting system for the serious scale builder, McDaniel's Model 180. The heart of the McDaniel Model 180 is the digital proportional controller, which allows sequential operation of all lights by remote control. The Model 180 kit includes wingtip and tail navigation lights, landing lights, strobes, battery pack and charger, wiring, and complete instructions to configure the system for your model. The digital proportional controller connects to your receiver through standard servo connectors. This allows you to control operation of navigation lights, strobes, and landing lights from the transmitter. Give your scale model the competitive edge with a lighting system that puts you in control. The Model 180 and the Model 188 for helicopters from McDaniel RC Incorporated.
Now we can move on to the third technique. And I picked this particular one up, at least part of it, from Bob Hunt. Bob Hunt is the editor of Flying Models magazine. He's my boss there. And he comes from a control line background. And control line flyers are widely noted for their ability to achieve a very gorgeous finish on a very light airframe. They're masters at finishing techniques. And what Bob showed me was when you get down to the point where you're ready to put a finish on a wood or a fiberglass airframe, you use styrofoam as your sanding block. It's nice because it can compress very evenly, and when you lay it down, it sort of follows the contours of the curves. And it's a soft block, but it's also very durable, and it applies just the right amount of pressure. It's a technique that's not very hard to do in terms of making up a block. You start off by getting a sheet of styrofoam insulation. It comes in large sheets about 2 by 8 foot long, and you just cut it up. What I've done here is I've cut these blocks up into sizes that are the same size as the sanding paper that I'm going to cut out. Next, what we do is we get a piece of wax paper. We want to use this wax paper because the method is going to be rather sloppy. We cut it off and put it down. To adhere the triamite paper, which is used in finishing, it's a 240 grit, to the styrofoam block, I came across a special cement called sanding disc cement. It's sold by Sears, and the number that I have on this particular bottle is 92220. I found it one day, saw it, and I asked the salesman, is this the type of stuff that they use on adhesive back sanding discs? And he said, yeah, and that stuff is extremely tacky and very durable. And I grabbed it right away, and I've been using it ever since then. Now, the method starts with the sanding paper. We lay it face down on the wax paper, and we're going to lay a little bead down on the back of the sandpaper. Now, you don't want to use too much of this stuff because it goes a long way. Once we get that, we get some sort of squeegee. Now, it's got to be something that's stiff because this stuff is so very tacky that if you use just a simple index card or a business card or something like that, it's too soft and it'll end up crumpling and you can't get the nice even coat that we really need for this. We want to spread it all over the sandpaper, just like this, all over that back. And of course you can see that the wax paper helps prevent the excess from sticking on the bench. In this particular application, that's very important. This adhesive is pressure sensitive and it hangs around for a long time. And if you get any on your workbench, you're not going to like it because it's going to show you how tacky it really is. So we use the wax paper behind it. We spread it out nice and evenly. You don't want any ridges or beads of cement left on this, but you also want to make sure that you get a good, even application all the way out to the edge of the paper, because we're going to take this paper, lay it down on the styrofoam block when it's dry, and we're going to cut it up into small individual sanding blocks. And if you don't get it applied evenly all the way around, when you cut it up, you're going to find pieces of the sanding paper lifted. Now, I find that this back end is pretty well done. We need to apply a little bit more up here at this top edge because it's a little dry. So I'm bringing up some of the excess and getting it up there. You can go right down here around the bottom and pick up a dab of it and put it up there. Okay, now, got that finished. It's evenly applied all the way out to the edges. There are no dry spots that I can see on it. It's going to take about 10 minutes for this to dry, so we're going to put it aside and we're going to move on to a piece that I had prepared before this to show you the rest of the technique. Put that right down there, and here's the piece. You can't see it, but it's evenly coated, and it's dried with the sanding disc cement. And this stuff is very tacky, as you can see that. That holds. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay the paper down on the table. We're going to take the sheet of styrofoam that we cut out, and again, you know, we want to get those edges lined up as precisely as we possibly can. You've got to do this carefully because this stuff is really tacky. And the next thing we do is we press down. Since this is a pressure sensitive, the more pressure we apply to this, the better that adhesion is going to be. And since we're going to be cutting it up into little blocks, we need to get it applied nice and evenly. You can turn it over and press down from this surface to make sure that it's snug all the way around. What I'm going to do is get the cutting board here, and I'm just going to cut out one block to show you how easy it is. If you look here, I have a grid showing you generally how you can cut up one sheet into about 9 evenly sized blocks. It's not important what size blocks you have, just the fact that you can get them to approximately about this size. And that works very well. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to cut across first. We're using the single-edged razor blade because that cuts the styrofoam very nicely. What I found at home is that when you use this technique, if you want to cut it up fast, if you have one of those Dremel scroll saws, they call them the moto shops, you can just put that in the moto shop and start cutting, and it cuts very nicely, and it gives you all of your blocks. There we have it. Okay, we've cut part of it. We want to make a smaller block about this size here, so we just slice it out. Now something like this, using this triamite paper, it's used basically for sanding the preparation finish for painting, but it can also be used for sanding fuselages because it's a much finer grit than any of the others. And there you have your sanding block, which you can use for finishing sanding on an airplane. Very versatile, gives a little bit, nice block, and it can sand very easily. Well, those are all the techniques that I can show you. I found that they've proven very versatile to me, and they've given me tools that are extremely precise. You can get dowels for sanding in fillets where you need to. Makes it very easy. You can get tools for sanding in very tight spots like these wing ribs with the 1/4-inch square sanding block that I made before. Fits very nicely. Or if you need to, you can make a fine edge sanding tool like this. What I've done here is I've taken a piece of stock that's approximately 1/8 inch wide, or about 3/32 inch wide by about a 1/2 inch wide, and I've put a very fine strip of sandpaper right along this thin edge using the throwaway technique that I first described. And I need it because I need to finish sand some of the slots in this bulkhead, and it fits in very precisely, and you can sand in a very nice snug fit for it. All of these tools are inexpensive. They're not hard to do. They can provide you with very precise tools for any application that you need. The only thing that limits you is your imagination. And what's more, money can't even buy them. Well, thank you for listening. If you'll excuse me again, I have to go back to finishing up some precision sanding on the Sig quarter scale Cub.
When you demand high-quality performance, use BK Products Blue Flame Fuels. BK Original Blue Flame Fuel is a blend of castor and synthetic oils with detergent and additives excellent for use in your model engine. BK Premium Gold Fuel contains space-age synthetic oils blended to give you the edge in performance, keeping 4 strokes running clean and smooth. The next time you're in Denver, visit the BK Hobby Center. Ask your local hobby dealer for BK Blue Flame Fuels.
Slope soaring is a form of RC soaring utilizing the lift generated when wind hits an obstruction. A cliff or a hill are the most common, but a building or tree line can also be a source of air having no place to go but up. The amount of lift generated from a slope is dependent upon several factors. The most obvious is wind velocity, but just as important is the shape and height of the slope face. Also, how clear and flat the area is, and the direction from which the wind is blowing, and the angle at which the wind hits the slope. This aircraft, designed by Bob Martin, is the Talon, flying in almost undetectable wind and lift conditions in Arizona. Many slope-soaring aircraft have aerobatic ability and can perform almost all the maneuvers of a power aircraft. They also have a speed range of between 15 and 100 miles per hour. This is Bob Martin flying his design, the Coyote. The Coyote has a wingspan of 72 inches and a wing loading of 9.5 to 10.5 ounces per square foot. Another Bob Martin design is the SR-7. This plane has a wingspan of 54 inches and a wing loading of 13 ounces per square foot. The SR-7 is definitely a high-performance aircraft. Often, hawks and other birds will join the RC pilots on the slope to take advantage of good lift conditions.
My name's Steve Grachowski, and I'm flying the Slopemaster Flying Wing, designed for light wind, can penetrate in heavy wind also. Try and build a little altitude. Maybe I can play with it a little for you. It's a balsa wood built-up wing, built-up fuselage. Actually, what inspired me to get a flying wing together was I was tired of trying to fly a large one and not having enough lift. So I made a small one, and it's a lot of fun. RC bum at heart.
We've got some exciting RC reports coming your way. Some of the topics include electric aircraft, float planes, scale, sport flying, cross-country racing, and a report on this, a B-29, the biggest RC aircraft yet. So get ready for future issues of RC Video Magazine.